There is only one type of man able to sustain a life without human contact, he said. It is not the murderer, it is not the addict, it is not the saint, it is not the poet. There are those who claim the murderer is best suited to solitude. His crime and his guilt render him undeserving of society, but as his crime is so intrinsically social, it is impossible to imagine him without a setting for his actions. When a murderer chooses to feel guilt, he craves society even more, as it is only by a wider forgiveness that he is able to trust himself. Left alone, he will poison his own chance for freedom from the past by reliving his action every moment of every day. He needs society as much as society does not want him. The addict is even worse suited to loneliness, for the true addict is a man crippled by his own need to consume. Whatever his addictive mind is fixated upon, his access to it is always facilitated through another. He is never self-sufficient, for he can never have enough. The saint is the weakest of the three. He has chosen to ignore the worldly and devote a life to the spiritual. Rare is the saint who has written his own dogma, who has made his own religion. A man can only be a saint when judged so by other men. It is not as God who has the power to canonize, it is other men. Thus the saint, seeking for an everlasting approval to acts he is doomed to only ever enact whilst on earth, is making a grave error. To devote oneself to the everlasting is to deny the joys of life. The poet cannot succeed when alone, for unless he writes his verse on the sky, there is nothing to keep them. If a poet is to live without others, how can he learn his craft? How may he learn to feel, to see, to know the human condition, the topic of all true poetry, if he is not to surround himself with it? Poetry without humanity can never contain beauty, and if this is what the poet seeks, he has truly become lost if he wishes to leave the real behind. The only man who can gain by leaving all he has known before is the suicide. The suicide is driven to his final act by the material world. It is the movements of society which push the self-destroyer beyond the point of saving, and if removed from the ills of wealth and health and the singing reminders of his own mortality that the social cycles of birth and life and death bring to him each day, he may escape his internal prison and be at one. For a death is a social construct. It is only within where it may be looked at as a way out. When one becomes animal, returns to nature, one may no longer fear one's own fear.